I found it absolutely refreshing. Dustin, he is a candid dude.
He is.
A lot of times, especially when you're talking about some of these uncomfortable intramural conflict among Republicans, a lot of Republicans don't want to talk about it. They certainly don't want to talk about it in a public setting. Dustin doesn't seem to care that much about it.
But you remember when he decided to run against Claire Corey for the Senate, he was like, yeah, I mean, they're not representing me, so I'm going to run. I mean, I appreciate it. I mean, that's a great way to look at it. But I will say this process of filling seats, as thinking about the 4 seats that have been filled most recently, Josh Christie passed away and was replaced by a far-right person.
Hey, Brown.
Olson. What's that?
TJ Brown.
Yep.
Yep.
And then Olson was replaced by Kelby
Cummins?
Yeah. Who I think was a far-right legislator. Then you have Cynthia Schreiber Beck, who was replaced by far-right legislator Scrow. And then Dustin's like the first one who's been a normie. I mean, he's replacing Emily, who's also a normie. But yeah, this process that's set up is very advantageous at this point in time for the far right. And his point about 30 people being in a room making this determination, this is not right. This is not right at all.
And I want to be clear, maybe this issue wouldn't have popped on my radar as squarely if it was normies doing this. And I think Dustin's comment about traditional Republicans or normie Republicans
used to do this great.
That's sure. They did it too. I don't think that makes the process okay. I mean, I am outcome agnostic. This process sucks.
So, Rob, I think we should challenge the legislature to fix this. And then if they don't, we should do an initiated measure to change it.
I think so. The problem is getting the public to care.
Right. Well, but and the solution, I don't think is that complicated, right? I think you do an appointment if they're in session. And if it's not in session, you either do a special election or it's the next regularly scheduled election.
Yeah, you have a time window. Depending on how close you are to an election or a legislative session. And if you have enough time, you have a special election. You don't have enough time, you do an appointment. And whoever gets appointed has to be confirmed at the next general election. Or maybe you have to hold a special election within X number of days. I mean, I think there's a way. I'd have to think about the timeline some. But let's decide who wants to be here.
But when this system was set up, I think it was by probably the majority of Republicans who, at that point, held all the district organizations and also had the vast majority of the legislature.
So I don't know when the process was set up. It might be in the.
No, it's not that long ago. Probably decades.
Maybe.
And I think it was because they didn't want to spend money on special elections. And there were a couple examples. I think
that's a fair argument. I mean, I can understand special elections are expensive.
But there was also a couple instances where like Shirley Meyer out in Dickinson won a special election because the turnout was so low. And so all of a sudden there was a bit of, Democrats do okay at these special elections. And that was when there was more competitiveness between the parties.
I don't think Republicans have anything to worry about a special election right
So
now.
That's what's interesting about this point in time is now the normie Republicans, who are still by and large in charge, the system is not working for them. So they should want to change it back to the special election where they would be successful.
But I also think the success of Republicans is what's driving and enabling a lot of this. They're not afraid of losing elections. And their coalition, the people who identify as, it's such a large voting bloc that, they think that they can afford to lock some people out. They can afford to narrow their tent. That's not really going to cost them anything. That's kind of where Republicans are living there now. Now, I think over the long term, if they keep doing stuff like this, it'll cost them.
Well, the big losers are not going to be the Republican Party versus the Democrat Party. The big losers are going to be the citizens of North Dakota if this far right faction takes over the state legislature and does what they want to do, right? I mean, we'll be in a continuous book ban, social issues.
Yeah. We're going to be like some of the other states where, everything is about the 10 Commandments and prayer in schools and all the other stuff. Meanwhile, childcare and school lunches and roads and all the rest of it are going unaddressed.
Yeah, we need to plow the damn roads for it.
Damn right. I think that's a lot of what's enabling it. And also, by the way, the Republicans who tell me that the solution for this is to just start ignoring the party, to do everything on the primary. I don't think that works in the long run either. I think that allows the problem that's in the party to fester, and it's going to just keep getting worse, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
especially
the Republicans who are in office now, a lot of the established lawmakers, certainly our statewide elected officials, certainly people at the top of the ballot like Kelly Armstrong, John Hoeven, Julie Fedorchak, they don't have to worry much about this stuff, right? But the problem is, where are the next generation of Republicans coming from? That's what I think we have to worry about. And
yeah.
if they ignore the problem in the party, that next generation of Republicans, I think it's going to be a lot of not very good candidates.
Yeah. And I hope, this opening in Grand Forks and Emily O'Brien going to work for the Armstrong administration, which again, I think she'll be good at that job. I hope Kelly also understands that he created this opening, so he better make damn sure that Mr. McNally gets to the primary without filling it with a far right person. So that's my call to action to Kelly Armstrong, and I'm sure he's 2 months ahead of me on this one.
Speaking of Kelly Armstrong, the far right dissatisfaction with his property tax plan manifested itself at a budget meeting, a marathon, almost 7-hour budget meeting in Minot. There was a motion made to essentially withdraw Minot's membership in the League of Cities. Now, if you're listening to this, you don't know what the League of Cities is. Essentially, you can call it a lobbying organization because that's part of what they do, but it's an association that cities pay dues to, and the organization offers services. You go to their website right now, they're advertising things like open records training to help city governments deal with the state's open records and open meetings laws. They offer services like drug testing and stuff for employees. How do you handle that? HR procedure, all sorts of things. It's sort of a clearinghouse that allows the different cities to work together, pool their resources, get services that all these city governments need. It's a good thing. Now, on the political side, I'll admit the League of Cities drives me nuts sometimes with their lobbying and stuff like that. But what happened is, and we have the audio that we're going to play here in a moment, that the city council in Minot, Scott Samuelson, who's a member of the council, made a motion to withdraw Minot's membership, which is $25,000 annual membership, to withdraw that membership over the property tax bill. And essentially they're saying we didn't want a cap, and the property tax gave us a cap, and I guess they're blaming the League of Cities for that. Let's roll the audio.
So I would like to make an amendment to the budget, and it's under city council line item for memberships and associations. And I would like to reduce that amount by $25,000 and discontinue our membership with the League of Cities.
Alderman Pittner.
I won't support this. Again, this is personal politics. This is personal beliefs that are bleeding into our making political statements up here. We saw it last year with the Chamber EDC and the attempt to defund them. It's not a good look for Minot.
Alderman Samuelson.
Paul, this has nothing to do with politics. You can believe what you want to believe. I don't play politics. And I'm not going to start today. It was because they used taxpayer money. They were getting taxpayer money. It would be no different than this city council standing up against Measure 4, in my opinion. And it's not politics. You can believe what you want, Paul.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. It's time to vote.
Yeah, so a little testy there. They voted, ultimately
The
passed.
motion passed for.
Yeah, ultimately passed 4-3. Mayor Janser, Paul Pittner, and Lisa Olson, the three members of the council, voting against Scott Samuelson, Rob Fuller, Mike Blessum, and the newly appointed Councilor Mike Hayes. Oh boy, I'm forgetting his name. He just got appointed, so I'm forgetting his name, but they voted for it. So it passed. So Minot's no longer a member of the League of Cities. Chad, what do you think?
Well, I think a lot of things. First of all, I have great respect for the League of Cities and the folks that work over there. And what was sort of the impetus for this is the League of Cities opposing Measure 4, the elimination of property taxes, which I don't know if you recall, Rob, I was intimately involved in that campaign.
Chad, full disclosure, Chad headed up the coalition for that case.
Yeah, chaired that campaign. And I will tell you, like an organization like League of Cities that put in money to defeat Measure 4, they've segregated funds, right? So it's not public dollars that are going to these. They also have private money that comes into their organization. So Alderman Samuelson doesn't know what he's talking about. But I will also say this property tax fight and the position that the counties were in, the cities were in, and school boards were in, there's a no-win position for these guys because in the Capitol, League of Cities had to be at the table because they were going to pass something. And so the League of Cities was at the table. They made a point during the hearings to say, we support doing something on property taxes, but there was going to be a cap. Kelly Armstrong said there was going to be a cap. Everybody said there was going to be.
We interviewed the House Majority Leader. We interviewed the Senate Majority Leader. We interviewed the House Minority Leader.
And the governor.
And the governor. Every single one of them said there's going to be a cap.
So what Blessum and Samuelson wanted the League of Cities to do is stand up and say, knowing all of that, knowing that this is going to happen, rather than being at the table, be on the outside and just cry and whine, which is essentially what Blessum did, right? He shows up at the thing and has Van Winkle sponsor a bill that says the state has to lower its 3%. This is again, these folks not understanding how the process works and that League of Cities was doing what they needed to do to have a voice in this conversation. If Blessum and those guys would have had their way, the cities would not have been part of this conversation at all.
Right. And if you paid attention and actually watched the process, the League of Cities, they were very effective in getting some concessions. Now, the thing is, the tracks were laid on the cap. We were getting a cap. The legislature's appetite for doing another buy down, because that's what the $1,600 credit would have been, absent a cap. It's just another buy down. And what have we seen? The state committing billions of dollars, pushing them into local budgets in various ways, whether it's school funding, whether it's credits, or all the different ways that we've tried to do that. And what has happened is people continue to be dissatisfied with the growth in their property taxes. So there was no way that they were going to do this again, put themselves on the hook again, without putting a cap into place. I think the cap is appropriate. And one of the things that makes me laugh about this is that Blessum, Samuelson, and Fuller campaigned for the Minot City Council as we're the true conservatives. And Blessum, this faction in the North Dakota Republican Party that we talk about all the time, Blessum in particular, is very active in that faction, publishing ratings and going after incumbent, centrist or traditional Republican legislators because they're not conservative enough or whatever. And here he is just going to the mattresses to defeat a cap on local spending.
To spend more money.
Right. Now, granted, I think he would probably say, well, I'm also in favor of doing all these cuts in the city and it's a principled thing. But how are you a fiscal conservative if you oppose a cap on local spending? That doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't compute. It doesn't match, how they present themselves to the voters.
Well, and so two things. One, I believe Blessum's scorecard that he does on Republicans, all it does is measure if they voted with Democrats or not. Like doesn't even.
Right. So if it's a vote on, hey, let's increase the pension for law enforcement, right? That's not really a right or left issue. I think that was a bill that was actually sponsored at the time by Representative Josh Boucher from Fargo as a Democrat. But it was a good bill, and it got a lot of, I think it passed almost unanimously. But Republicans got dinged on that bill because they voted with Democrats on it.
Yeah. I mean, it's a really, thoughtful, ideological way to look at if you voted with the other team, therefore it's a bad bill. That's given a lot of power.
What doesn't matter what the bill is. What matters is if you voted with Democrats for the bill.
Imagine how much power that's giving Democrats, right? I mean, so Democrats are the ones that are determining if something is good or bad. But also, this all comes down to Measure 4. At some point, these folks have to understand it was not a good idea. Measure 4 was not a good idea. It was defeated overwhelmingly, and you got to get over it. The governor and the legislature did significant property tax relief and reform. Now we're going to see how it works. But these guys have to get over Measure 4. It was not a good idea, and the people didn't want it.
Yeah. I mean, twice now.
Yeah.
Measure 4 has been variations on the Measure 4 idea have been defeated. It was defeated in 2012. It was defeated again a dozen years later in 2024. And oh, by the way, a poll that was released by the North Dakota News Cooperative last month asked people about this property tax plan, described it to them. You're getting a $1,600 credit and a 3% cap on property tax bills. How do you feel about it? Over 70% of people, I think it was like 72, 73% of people said they support this plan. So who is your constituency here? I mean, who are you supporting?
And Governor Armstrong knows when people see the $1,600 credit on their property taxes, they're going to be over the moon happy with what
Their
happened.
property tax bills are going to go down. People's monthly payments, if you have your property tax bill in an escrow as part of your mortgage payment, your mortgage payment's going to go down.
So these folks, part of it might be that they're just mad they lost this issue, right? I mean, there's no. I think there's going to be a lot less people complaining about property taxes, and now they don't know what they're going to do.
I think that there is an element here of wanting to keep people upset about property taxes. I think there is an element of, I think they're afraid. I think they know probably about as well as the governor does that this is going to work or it's going to make people happy. I'm not saying that a decade from now, there's not going to be more work that needs to be done. But for a while, this poured some oil on the waters. I don't think they want that.
Yeah,
I think they want people to stay angry because they want to take another run at another Measure 4.
And here's the other thing. If the caps don't work the way the legislature wants them to and there needs to be tweaks, the legislature made it very clear they're willing to look at tweaks if they're necessary.
That was one of Blessum's arguments, is that it's creating hardships and whatever. I'm actually taking that on its own at face value. I'm sympathetic to that. You know, if there are ways that we're making it unduly difficult for local governments to budget, then I'm in favor of looking at ways to tweak it. Now, I am not in favor in the short. This is the first time we've been through this, by the way, that we've had a budget cycle where local governments have had to budget. I am not very. There's some pain because there has to be some adjustments, because what was driving higher property taxes was local spending, and so they're gonna have to rein some things in, and then the voters are gonna have to decide if they're happy about that. But we've been having a situation where, you know, we're giving the voters what they want, which is lots of amenities and lots of spending, and then we're paying for it by the state government doing property tax buy downs. That was unsustainable. That wasn't going to last. We had to try something different. The cap's different. I'm open to the idea that it needs to be changed down the road, but going after, and I don't know what they expected the League of Cities to do, by the way.
Well, and not to mention, League of Cities didn't want caps. The political subs didn't want caps. But you're in that building up there. But you have to be at the table. They were going to happen.
The caps were the other part of the bill. They did want the $1,600
right.
That's money coming to them.
Right. But here's what the people up in Minot don't understand is you have to be at the table, right? You have to be part of these conversations. And that's the exact reason why Minot should be part of League of Cities, because it guarantees the cities have a voice at the state capitol. Minot can come down here and try to do all their own things, but it's not going to be as effective as the League of Cities are.
You know what's really interesting is to kind of the connotation here to where he says, I want to cut $25,000 out of the budget. There's probably a lot of people in the public that hear that and like, wow, that's a big number. If you look at the services that the League of Cities, not just the lobbying stuff down at the legislature, but the other services they provide, like the open records training, like, maybe some of all the different ways in which the city has to do business. They're big employers. So there's HR stuff, there's and these are just some of the things that have been on their website when I looked at it this morning. But they provide a lot of services, a lot of training, that if the city has to replace those, maybe you don't have to replace all of them, but even if you have to replace a few, it's going to cost you more than $25,000. I'd be very interested in seeing Minot's. I don't think, my contention is, and I think I'm probably right, is that Minot's not going to save money on this. It's going to end up costing the taxpayers more, because you're losing a lot of services that the League of Cities provides that Minot's going to have to get elsewhere to function.
Well, and not to mention, I think in your column, you pointed out that there was a city administrator or something was on the board of League of Cities.
Finance director, Dave Lakefield's on the board of, I don't know what this means. If he has to come off the board, I don't know.
Well, but the point is so Minot's in a position to leverage the resources of League of Cities and all these other cities pooled resources, because they're at the table at the board to sort of push their priorities. I just think about the training, the different things that they do, and I think this is so short-sighted for a handful of legislator or city aldermen and women up in Minot. I feel bad for League of Cities because I know how hard this session was on them and how hard they worked. And now to get kicked in the face by one city commission is just BS.
I think the League of Cities is great. When I say that they drive me nuts sometimes, that's just the normal political debate.
Right.
They take positions that I don't agree with. But that doesn't mean I don't see their value. That doesn't mean I think it's good that we have a clearinghouse for city governments where they can work together and pull resources. I think it makes them more efficient and probably saves us money in the long run.
Yep.
And the League of Cities isn't perfect. There's plenty of criticisms you can make of them that are perfectly valid. But, this was, I think, Alderman Pittner, I think, was very succinct. He said, this is politics. This is personal politics. You didn't get the outcome you like. And so now you're throwing a tantrum. That's not you heard his direct quote, but I think that's exactly right. This is personal politics. They're mad about Measure 4. They're mad that they didn't get their way down in Bismarck. And so they're going to punish the League of Cities for it. And by the way, League of Cities has membership all across Grand Forks. The city of Grand Forks was very supportive of this legislation. Brandon Perchinsky likes the cap, right? I mean, Minot is not the only constituency for the League of Cities either.
Well, and think about if you're the League of Cities, you have to provide services for cities the size of Fargo and cities the size of towns the size of Fredonia, right? I mean, those are very, very different things. And again, having them all work together and try to keep everybody happy, it's a very, very difficult job. And again, these folks are not helping. Paul Pittner's, this is not a good look for Minot. This is not a good look for Minot.
That's the other thing, too. Minot does not have a strong legislative delegation. When you look at some of the people who've been elected, Lori Van Winkle, who is at odds not just with Democrats, but her own party a lot of the time. Jeff Hoverson, same thing. We have the Senate Majority Leader, but I'll be honest with you, Hogue doesn't focus a lot. Senator Hogue, my understanding is he sees that position as kind of a statewide position. And maybe that would make some sense if you had some other people in your community delegation who are doing the work, but I don't know who those people are, really. I think it's a tough thing right now. That's what I hear from people in Minot all the time. We have a very weak legislative delegation. Now they also lost their membership in the League of Cities. So the League of Cities has no obligation now to represent the city of Minot. That's a problem because I'll tell you, most people who serve in the legislature aren't from Minot and don't prioritize Minot because they're from places like Bismarck and Fargo and Fredonia and all the other places.
Yep.
Do we have
as you were talking about the weak delegation, I just think about that, like the Dickinson right now. Dickinson is in such a great position with Mike LaFleur being the House Majority Leader and then the governor being from Dickinson. These guys in both love their hometown communities and are delivering for their hometown communities. Obviously, the governor delivers for everybody. But if I was Eastern North Dakota, I'd be a little concerned about the lack of Eastern leadership in the legislature on the Republican side. Yeah. That's me encouraging them to flex their muscle a little bit out there in Fargo and Grand Forks. Maybe Dustin McNally should run for leadership.
Maybe. You just got there. And hey, with term limits coming in, he needs to be thinking that way.
Yeah. How does term limits? This does not, like, these half terms do not count towards their time, do they?
Yeah, they do. Okay. They do currently. I think that's one of the issues that's going to be on the ballot.
Sure.
The statewide, the amendments, because right now they do. So if you, that's why, a lot of times I think a lot of people who are maybe interested in serving the legislature don't want to run for these vacancies because the problem is,
that chops,
you serve for a year and then you get elected to a full term. You can't get elected to another full term because you're up. That's pretty tough. All right. Last thing we want to talk about, voter ID. You think I'm all wrong. I thought it was kind of interesting. The League of Women Voters and North Dakota Native Vote was out there celebrating what they called voter registration. In the rest of the nation, it's voter registration day, but North Dakota doesn't have voter registration. So here they were calling it voter ID day. They were encouraging people to get their voter ID. I thought it was ironic for a couple of organizations that cast voter ID as voter suppression.
Well, here's the deal, Rob. We have voter ID in North Dakota. Just because you're trying to give people ID so they can vote doesn't mean you like the law. They want people to be able to vote. After this,
But I think it's so much more productive because I have been very hard on the League of Women Voters lately. I mean, they had, had Ellen Chafee speaking at one of the recent events talking about how elections are rigged. And they're talking about how voter ID is voter suppression all the time. I think a lot of that stuff is irresponsible when they're saying those things at a time where we are struggling to get people to trust these institutions. This idea that voter ID is immediately, just as a concept, is voter suppression,
Yeah.
I think is wrong and irresponsible. And
So I think
saying, if they're going to start encouraging people to get their voter IDs, I took it as great. That is a much more positive use of your time. Let's get everybody who wants to vote ready to vote.
Yeah, I think part of the controversy about voter ID, certainly in the past, was the timing of it. Right before the controversial the 2018 Senate election. I think North Dakota's actually done a really
we had voter ID for 6 years before that election.
Well, it wasn't there was some change in terms of what counted before the 2018 election, right?
Oh, well, I think there was some struggle, particularly on reservation, because tribal IDs didn't have photos on them.
Was that 2012 or 2018? I know it was right before.
That was 2018. I think was right before. It was the 2017 session.
Okay,
and the struggle was that a lot of tribal IDs didn't have photos on them, if I'm remembering right,
or residential address or something.
A lot of them had like PO boxes and not residential addresses. And at the time, I think a lot of the because they're very, very rural. Maybe they didn't have 911 addresses.
Yeah, it might have been rural routes.
But I didn't perceive that as being voter suppression.
So I think it could have been. I think what ended up happening there is the Democrat Party and the state actually did a really good job of making sure people got IDs, and the tribal voters actually went up that election. But I'm going to compliment the state right now. I think that since that election, the state has done a lot of things to make getting IDs a lot easier, and which has made it so that law has not been a deterrent for people to vote. So I think, getting.
But I think in some ways it's improved. Like I think it's also given some impetus to some of these rural communities to get their 911 addresses.
Sure.
And also, maybe improve IDs. I mean, I think it's been better. And by the way, credit to obviously a whole coalition of lawmakers, but also former Secretary of State Al Jagger.
Yeah, agreed.
A lot of good work on there. Current Secretary of State Michael Howe, who I think continues that work.
No, I agree. I don't think voter ID now. I mean, part of it is just how quickly it has to be done. But I think since the law was passed to now, we've probably done a good enough job where it shouldn't be suppressing people's votes. Listen, I'm a guy who, and this might be the most controversial thing I say today. I'm a proponent of voter registration in the state. I think that would be very helpful to make sure that I think our elections are run very, very well, and they're fair and they're clean and whatever. Voter registration might make that even easier for the people working at the polls.
I think that I agree with you. I wouldn't be against voter suppression. And I know that voter registration, my goodness. Voter registration, I would be in favor of. My goodness, that was a terrible
Freudian.
No, it was not a Freudian slip. I am not for voter suppression. Chad, I think the push for like voter registration is ironic. You don't have to register to vote in North Dakota now.
Right.
You have to have an ID, and you have to make sure your address is updated 30 days before the election. That is a lot. It's a lot easier to vote in North Dakota than it is in a place like California or New York. We don't have nearly as many. And that's what really frustrated me about, circa 2018. And I think some of it was people wanted to blame Heidi Heitkamp losing on something that wasn't.
But Rob, I also think there was a bit of a motivator there because Heidi needed high tribal turnout. And I think sort of saying they're trying to keep you to not vote was also a motivator to get folks to get out and vote.
Sure.
Effectively.
Yeah. That same election cycle, the North Dakota Democratic Party invented a fake hunters group to try to convince people that they wouldn't be able to vote if they had a hunting license in another state. So that stuff sucks, whoever does it. And, whatever talking points Heidi Heitkamp needed to get people out, I think it's irresponsible. Those laws were reasonable. And I will agree. We've tweaked them and we've made it better, but that's just democracy over time. Sure. I think anybody was trying to suppress votes. I think we're trying to secure our elections. When I say I don't know, maybe there's some people who voted for it, but I don't think Al Jagger was trying
No,
to impress
but there certainly were people who were thinking this might, because I mean, in 2017, the thought was that election ended up being 10 points, so it probably didn't matter that much. But in 2012, she won by 1,500 votes or whatever.
Yeah.
You get 2,000 Native Americans not to be able to vote from IDs. I mean, that makes the difference in the election. And I mean, the National Republicans were looking at North Dakota very closely. I mean,
if saying you have to have an ID suppresses the vote, doesn't voter registration suppress the vote then?
We're talking about two different things now, Rob. I've moved past voter ID. I think in terms of voter I'm looking at this from a political party point of view. You don't, or a candidate point of view, you don't know who the voters are. Well, it's better now to centralize voter file because we sort of have de facto voter registration with the voter file anyway. But I just think it would make for better elections if we knew exactly who was going to vote or was eligible.
I agree with you. And I don't mind them for the primary too, where I think if you're going to help choose a party's candidate, you should have some buy-in.
I'm not sure I agree with party registration. Because what happens in those places where there's party registration, everybody just, in red states like this, I know across the country, they just register as Republicans.
So just know.
Yep.
Just straight up, I'm registered to vote as a voter, and we don't care. Yeah, I'd be okay with it.
Yeah.
All right, we're over time.
So Rob, the two things we're going to do is initiated measure to change the process for appointing legislators and voter registration. Good work today.
You were creating a lot of work for us in the future.
Yeah, there's no way we'll do either of those things.
Oh, no, someone should. But
what someone ought to do?
Someone ought to do. We sound like those two guys down at the end of that. You know what a guy ought to do? All right, we got to put a pin in it there. Thank you so much for listening. Remember, you can always call, leave us a voicemail, send us a text, 701-587-3141. Follow us on all the social media things, Plain Talk ND. I promise we're not that obnoxious. Well, you're just going to get mostly clips. You're going to get my columns. You can get some clips from the show, full episodes. If you want to follow us that way, follow us that way. Hey, coming up next week, my daughter's getting married next week.
Congrats, Robert.
I am both. It's a hard moment for a dad. The guy she's married is great guy. I'm so proud of them. I'm very happy for him. It's hard for a dad though. It's hard. It's a bittersweet event. Anyway, before I start crying, Chad's going to be guest hosting. Pat Finken is going to be the guest host. Guests are TBD. Chad will be. I guess you'll find out.
I got some work to do, Rob. That's what I got.
Got some work to do.
So you know what? Hey, if anybody has any suggestions, text me.
Yeah, there we go. Text 701-587-3141 if you want to be on the show with Chad and Pat.
Or have suggestions, not just yourself.
Yeah. We'll get some rando just on the show. Just
not just yourself.
All right. Thank you so much for listening as always. We'll talk again. That's it for today on Plain Talk, the voice of North Dakota politics. Plain Talk is a production of Forum Communications Company. Got a question, comment, or suggestion? Leave us a voicemail or send us a text message at 701-587-3141. That's 701-587-3141. If you haven't subscribed to Plain Talk yet, you can find us on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform like Spotify or Apple Podcasts. For those of you who are already hooked, give us a rating or review. And don't forget to share or tell a friend. Special thanks to my co-host Chad Oban, and from myself and everyone at Plain Talk, thanks for listening. He is a candid dude.
He is.